Dear Sagittarius, have you ever tried to hold on to a breeze in your hand only to realize you were clinging to a soul that was born to be free? This is not just a story about Sagittarius. This is a truth no one dares to speak aloud. No one can truly control a Sagittarius. And today I will tell you 20 deep reasons why that is impossible. Stay until the end, because the final reason might just make you look back at your own life and realize maybe you too are a soul being held captive. If you're ready to embrace the wildest, freest, and greatest part of yourself, comment below. I am ready to step into my destiny of freedom. Because every comment is not just a statement, it's a way to align yourself with the energy of the universe that's guiding you toward success. But don't be too quick to call them selfish. Sagittarius doesn't leave to hurt you, they leave to protect their own light. And the next reason will surprise you. Sagittarius is not just someone who refuses to stay, they are someone who ignites the flame within your soul. There is a paradox in love and in life. The more tightly you try to hold on to something, the more likely you are to lose it. And with Sagittarius, this is truer than ever. You cannot hold back an arrow that is already flying toward the light, because they are not something you are meant to own. They are a journey, and you can only travel alongside them, never control them. From an astrological lens, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, freedom, vision, and truth. Jupiter is not just a planet, it is a promise of boundlessness, a light that blazes in the darkness of limitations. And that's why no soul carrying the energy of Sagittarius could ever thrive in confinement. Whether it's a golden cage, sweet words, or a stable life that feels hollow. I once watched a close friend, a Sagittarius, trapped in a relationship where everything was perfect, except for one thing. She could not be free to be herself. Every word, every action had to be filtered. Every dream was suffocated. Every desire tamed under the excuse of safety. And then one day, no tears, no argument, she left, because she knew, sacrificing your soul is never the price of true love. Have you ever loved someone but feared losing them so much that you made it hard for them to breathe? If so, you understand that love is not about holding on. Sometimes love means letting a soul burn in its own sacred fire. Instead of trying to control someone to feel secure, learn to love them in their freedom. Because the one who truly belongs with you won't need to be held back. And the one who needs to go, even if you build a fence made of gold, will still leave, answering the call within them. Have you ever tried to hold someone too tightly, only to lose them in the end? If that's ever happened to you, comment below. I choose trust over control. You never know. Maybe you'll help someone out there who's hurting from clinging to a soul that was meant to fly free. To a Sagittarius, freedom is not a preference, it's their breath. They live through faith, with their eyes fixed far beyond the horizon, carrying dreams no one else may understand. And that's why many can't handle them, because they are too different from the standard society imposes. But you know what? The ones who can't be controlled are often the ones who lead the spiritual revolutions. They're the first to step out of the box. The ones who ask the question when the whole world stays silent. The ones who refuse to settle for good enough, because they believe in something greater, wider, holier, waiting to be discovered. And Sagittarius is the living embodiment of that truth. They do not rebel to defy you. They simply cannot shrink themselves to make you comfortable. The story you're hearing right now is not just about a zodiac sign. Maybe it's a part of you that's been silenced, finally awakening. If you're in love with a Sagittarius, or if you are one yourself, share this video, not to declare that you cannot be controlled, but to remind the world. To love someone is to give them enough trust to let them fly, and enough reason to come home. And if you feel this message speaks your truth, leave a comment or share this video with someone you believe needs to hear it. Because who knows, you might be the key to someone else's awakening. And this is only the first reason. Because what makes Sagittarius uncontainable is not rebellion, but the fact that they were born to lead the way. And next you'll see why a Sagittarius is not just someone who refuses to be tied down, but someone who ignites your very soul. There are people who enter your life briefly. They leave nothing material behind, no promises, no gifts, not even a long presence. But after they're gone, you are no longer the same, because they lit something in you. something even you had forgotten. That is how a Sagittarius loves, not through possession, but through ignition. Sagittarius is a fire sign, but not like Aries who bursts into flame, or Leo who blazes in grandeur. Their fire is internal, a steady torch, glowing silently in the hearts of others when those hearts are ready to open. It is the fire of wisdom, truth, vision, and a higher reason to live. They do not come to stay. They come to remind you why you once lived a dream so fully. I once met a Sagittarius woman during a healing retreat. She didn't ask me where I hurt. She gave no advice. She simply sat beside me, looked into my eyes, and said, "I think you've forgotten what you once wanted to do for this world." And I, without knowing why, began to cry. Not from pain, but from remembering myself. A Sagittarius doesn't need to be your guide. They don't try to teach you. They just live so authentically that you feel there's no longer a reason to live any other way. Have you ever felt grateful to someone not because of what they did, but because of what they reawakened in you? That is the quiet power of a true Sagittarius. Not someone who comes to teach, but someone who lives so truthfully that you can no longer pretend. They don't force you to change, but their freedom makes you ask, why have I lived so small when I once knew how to fly? If you've ever met someone like that, leave a comment. I'm rekindling the fire inside me. It may only take one person reading your comment to begin their journey back to themselves. But because they carry the torch ahead, they are often lonely. They sense what others aren't ready to face. They see lands you're not yet brave enough to enter. They don't live in the now, they live in the beyond, and that makes them hard to understand. Those who light the path for others often walk alone at first. If you've ever been a Sagittarius, you'll know this feeling. The longing to connect, but always being too far ahead. And if you love a Sagittarius, know this. They don't walk away because they don't love you. They walk away because they believe the light you need cannot be handed to you. You have to find it within. No one can light the fire for someone else if they cannot keep their own burning. And so, Sagittarius always lives in truth, even if that means being misunderstood. Because they understand one simple sacred truth. Fake light cannot be passed on. They carry the energy of the explorer, not only in the physical world, but in the spiritual landscape of those around them. Not everyone can handle their fire, but those who've been touched by it never live the same again. Have you ever met a Sagittarius who made you want to live more truthfully? Share your story, because who knows? You might be the reason someone remembers their light. And now you'll understand why. To control a Sagittarius is like trying to extinguish the very flame you're drawn to. You cannot command a star to shine. You cannot order a sunrise to come on your schedule, and you cannot control the soul of a Sagittarius if you haven't yet mastered the light within yourself. And if that light in them is what stirred your heart, then prepare to go deeper. You'll soon see why a Sagittarius may not stay long, but they always appear at the exact moment your soul needs to be awakened. Some meetings happen so quickly you never get to name them. Yet strangely, their echo lasts longer than relationships you spent years building. And Sagittarius is just that kind of person. They come like a breeze, gentle, cooling, full of wonder. And they leave the same way, without warning, without turning back, without saying goodbye. But what they leave behind is not emptiness. It is light. Light you forgot you needed. Light you didn't even know had long since gone out. From an astrological view, Sagittarius is a mutable sign. They aren't rigid. They adapt to change. They move with the wind and with the voice of the soul. And that's why they don't stay long anywhere. If that place no longer fits their journey or yours. Not everyone who leaves is abandoning you. Some goodbyes are actually the most beautiful gifts they could ever leave behind. A free soul will teach you how to love without possessing. And that is the noblest kind of love. The love that doesn't confine. I once heard someone say she was only in my life for 2 months, but in those 2 months, she made me rethink my entire life. And I understood that was a Sagittarius. Not because she was born in November or December, but because her soul carried the essence of a guide. She doesn't settle, she only passes through. But when she does, she touches deep. Have you ever missed someone? Not because they stayed long, but because they arrived exactly when you needed them most. If you've ever met someone like that, even if only for a moment, even if only through a glance, a word, or a hug right when you thought you couldn't go on, leave a comment. I once met that light. Maybe you are living proof that a Sagittarius left something beautiful on their way through. Maybe you once thought they weren't committed enough, that they were afraid of attachment, that they walked away before things were complete. But the truth is, they know when to come and when to step back. Because they don't love from need. They love from timing. And sometimes, that is worth more than a lifetime of hollow promises. Someone who loves you at the right time can heal you forever. And someone who stays at the wrong time can break you in a way no one can fix. Sagittarius understands that. They are not lost. They are not drifting. They simply listen to the deepest beat within themselves and leave when their soul knows the mission is complete. That's why you can't hold a Sagittarius, but you will never forget them. And the miracle is, when you learn not to hold them, they may return, not as a former lover, but as a soul friend, a light that once led you closer to yourself. And that is the third reason. The next reason reveals a part of Sagittarius few talk about. They're not just the ones who can't be held. They are the ones who dare to break every rule to open a new door for you. Some people were born not to follow, not to repeat what the world told them to believe, not to fit into the safe boxes society built and labeled as love, career, morality, or loyalty. A Sagittarius was born to step out of those boxes. And by stepping out, they don't just free themselves, they unlock a door for everyone still trapped in the dark, longing for a different way. Astrologically speaking, Jupiter, Sagittarius ruling planet, is the planet of expansion, truth, experience, and spiritual awakening. They weren't built to repeat. They were born to go beyond, not because they want to rebel, but because the truth within them is louder than the fear of being disliked. You may not be ready for the freedom of Sagittarius, but they are reflecting the part of you that's still in chains. Have you ever felt irritated by someone's indifference? Ever thought someone was too reckless, too different, too free? Try asking yourself, is it possible you're resenting in them something you once longed for, but didn't have the courage to live? Every advancement in human history came not from those who conformed, but from those who stood up, broke the mold, and chose loneliness, because they knew a soul cannot grow in comfort, and Sagittarius is that kind of soul. I once knew a Sagittarius who quit a dream job many would envy, just because of one sentence her boss said, "Here, don't ask too many questions." She resigned that same week. No plan B, no support. Just one thing she believed. If I'm not allowed to ask questions, then that place is not my future. Don't hate someone for daring to live differently. Be grateful they do, so you can see yourself in their reflection and ask, have I been living true to myself? Have you ever broken something, a job, a relationship, a role, just to be yourself again? If your answer is yes, leave a comment. I chose myself, even at a cost. You are not alone, and you are not crazy. You're crossing the threshold into deeper maturity. For Sagittarius, rules aren't made to be broken, but to be tested. Do they still serve the soul? And when the answer is no, they walk away without regret, because they're not loyal to the system. They are loyal to the light within. And that's what makes them a powerful source of inspiration, but also one of the most misunderstood. You think you can control a Sagittarius, but in truth, that's when they disappear. No noise, no anger, just silence. And when you look again, they're gone. Because their soul has moved on to open another door where truth is still honored. And if you think they're selfish, what comes next will show you this. It's not that they're disloyal. It's that they are more loyal than anyone to your soul at the moment you needed it most. There are people who, when they enter your life, everything lights up again. But those same people, when they walk away, leave behind a space no one else can ever fill. That is Sagittarius. It's not because they're too good. It's not because they're perfect. It's because they are the wind, and the wind can never belong to any cage. In astrology, Sagittarius carries the image of a half-human, half-horse being, a wild, mythical creature, untamed by any force, a symbol of adventure, of freedom, of the thirst to go beyond both physical and spiritual limits. You can't love a Sagittarius the usual way. You have to learn to love them like you love the sky. You can't grasp it. You can't hold it. You can only look up and be grateful they passed through your life. I once loved a Sagittarius. They carried the light of someone who sees beyond the world that exists. And at first, I believed, if I just loved hard enough, held tight enough, they would stay. But I learned, the tighter you try to hold the wind, the more it tears your hands apart. Have you ever loved someone only to learn that true love is letting go, not holding on? When they left, I thought I had lost them. But over time, I realized they left me a lesson bigger than love itself. That not everyone who leaves is truly lost. Some people are born to belong to the sky, and if we love them, we must learn to open our hands. To love a free soul means to love with trust, not control. It means being brave enough to give them space to be fully themselves, even if that means facing the ache of their absence. If you've lived this, if you've learned to love by letting go, leave a comment. I once loved the wind, and I learned not to hold on. Because your words might reach the heart of someone else who's still aching, not knowing how to gently release their grief. When you stop clinging with the mind and begin to love with the wisdom of the heart. When you stop trying to possess, when you stop loving out of fear and start loving with faith, you'll see the wind return, softly, naturally, and more whole than ever before. Sagittarius, once free, doesn't run away. They simply journey far, seeking a light you're not yet ready to see. But if you have the patience, they may return. Not as a former lover, but as a soul companion. You can't trap the wind, but the true wind will always find its way back to the place where it was released, not restrained. And here's the strange truth. The moment you stop trying to keep a Sagittarius is often the moment you become the one they most want to stay with. But something even more fascinating awaits. You've seen them as the wind. Now see them as bearers of truth. Not because they love confrontation, but because they can't stand to live a lie. And that is the sixth reason. Some people hurt you, not out of cruelty, but because they're honest. And of all the zodiac signs, Sagittarius is the one most willing to pay the price for telling the truth. In astrology, Jupiter, their ruling planet, governs expansion, truth, ethics, and noble aspirations, which means they didn't come into this world to please you. They came to live in alignment with the highest light within them, even if it makes others uncomfortable. I once had a Sagittarius friend. He was the first person brave enough to say what no one else dared. You're living a life you didn't truly choose. I was angry. I felt offended. But months later, that single sentence was the one that cracked me open and gave me the courage to rebuild my life from the ground up. Have you ever been hurt by a truth, only to later be more grateful for it than all the sweet lies you once believed? I realized some people don't show up to soothe you. They come to shake you awake. Not everyone who's nice loves you the right way, and not everyone who makes you hurt is someone to cast out. Sagittarius is that kind of person. They love with honesty, because to them, pretending to agree is a betrayal of the soul. In a world obsessed with appearance, compromise, and comfort, they are different. And that difference, at times, is the only light left in a room full of distorted mirrors. Truth doesn't break you. Only long-lasting illusions do that. And sometimes, the one who dares to tell you something hard to hear is the one loving you most sincerely. If you've ever chosen truth, even knowing it would shake everything, leave a comment. I choose truth, no matter how much it hurts, because your courage might become a mirror for someone else trapped in sweet words that say nothing. I once asked a Sagittarius, "Aren't you afraid people will hate you?" She just smiled and said, "I'm only afraid of living out of alignment with my truth." And I understood. People like her will never fit into a pre-programmed life. They need space to expand. They need truth to stay loyal. They need awakening, not approval. If you love a Sagittarius, don't force them to say what you want to hear. Learn to listen to what you need to hear, and find the strength not to look away. You don't have to be like them, but you can learn something sacred from them. To be honest with yourself is the foundation for loving others in the right way. And if you ever thought they were cold, wait for the next part, where you'll see another side. Even if they don't stay long, even if they don't say comforting words, Sagittarius is the one you'll never forget, because they're the one who changed you forever. Some people don't need a roof to call shelter. They don't need a fixed address to call home. because their eyes, their words, and their hearts have already become a shelter for so many weary souls. To me, that's Sagittarius. In astrology, Sagittarius rules the ninth house, the house of philosophy, religion, higher learning, inner journeys, and questions about life's meaning. No other sign carries a longing to go far, both outward and inward, as powerfully as Sagittarius does. They don't just walk far with their feet. They journey far with their thoughts, their curiosity, and their hunger for what is true. I once met a homeless man, wandering from step to step in an old library, sleeping in parks, no possessions, no title. I didn't know his zodiac sign, but when he lifted his face and said to me, "You don't need a home if your heart has come a place where others find peace," I knew I had just met a Sagittarius. He had nothing, and yet he had everything. He owned nothing, but he awakened something. He was tied to no one, but his presence was so strong you couldn't turn away. Some souls don't need a home because they've already become a home for other hearts. Not everyone who travels is running away. Some go, not to escape, but to carry light into places still untouched. They live like the sages of old, without crowns, without temples, without needing to be recognized. They need only one thing: the freedom to question, the freedom to believe, and the freedom to live by their truth. Have you ever heard a single sentence from a complete stranger, but it changed the way you live forever? If you have, share it in the comments. I once met a soul like that, because sometimes the words you think are small are exactly what someone else needs to keep going. Sagittarius doesn't mean to leave you behind. They're simply being led by something greater than themselves. A question still unanswered, an idea not yet spoken, a soul still waiting to be sparked. They don't live for titles. They live for awakening. And you cannot control such a journey, just like you cannot command the wind to blow in the direction you want. And that's why trying to control a Sagittarius is trying to control enlightenment itself. And that is something none of us has the right to do. And if you think they're just wanderers, wait until the next part, where you'll realize Sagittarius sees so far ahead, not everyone has the courage to walk beside them. And because of that, they're always one step ahead. Have you ever felt like you simply can't stop, even when others say, "That's enough. You're safe now. Just be satisfied"? But your heart doesn't rest. Not because you're greedy, but because you feel something greater is calling. And that is how a Sagittarius lives every single day. In astrology, Sagittarius is guided by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, faith, and the future. This makes it impossible for them to settle into the small, not because they look down on it, but because their heart cannot rest in what is incomplete. They are always looking forward, always seeking the next level, a wider truth, a future vast enough for their soul to fully expand. I once loved a Sagittarius. I gave her everything: a home, a stable life, all the things I thought were enough. But then, one evening, as the sunlight faded ever so slowly, she turned to me and asked, "Have you ever felt like you're living smaller than your soul?" And I was silent, because I knew she was about to leave. Not because I did anything wrong, but because what I called the destination was, to her, only a resting place. Have you ever felt unable to settle in a place where everyone else seems at peace? If your heart has ever ached with that question, if you've ever turned down stability because you knew it wasn't meant for you, leave a comment below. I was not born to live small, because your words might be the voice for a soul being forced into silence. The difficult nature of Sagittarius is not a demand. It's a reminder to the world you were born to expand, not shrink. You didn't come here to survive, you came to truly live. They may confuse many people because they refuse to settle for just enough. They walk away from secure positions to chase something no one else can see but them. But you know what? If you think that's just rebellion, wait for the next part, and you'll understand why. They are the wind, always free, never held. They're the first to sense the wave from afar, the first to feel a shift in the energy of a room, the first to believe in a dream no one else dares to name. And sometimes, because they see further, Sagittarius is often misunderstood, as if they're never satisfied, as if they're not loyal. But the truth is, they're more loyal than anyone, to your soul, to the potential within you that hasn't yet been awakened. You'll come to understand this clearly. Sagittarius doesn't leave. They remain true to the highest promise within them. They don't want you to hold on. They want you to understand. You can't hold them with fame, with contracts, or with anything the world labels as stable or good. Because their loyalty is not to appearances. It's to a calling that comes from deep within. That is Sagittarius. In astrology, Sagittarius represents the highest truth, not the truth built by human laws, but the truth of the soul. They won't make promises unless they believe they can keep them. But if they hear something echo from within, they will chase it until the end, even if it costs them everything. I once had a friend, a Sagittarius. She was at the top of a dream job, high salary, secure position, admired by all. And then one day, she quit. No one understood. Everyone thought she was crazy. But she said only one thing: "I feel myself dying inside, and there's no salary in the world that's worth that price." And I knew. She had just done what so many of us don't dare to be honest with her soul. Courage is not changing everything outside. Courage is facing what's within and saying, "I can't keep living like this." Are you truly living, or just repeating a role that society wrote for you? That question may sound soft, but if you answer it honestly, it might make you cry. Because many of us have lived our whole lives to be accepted, but never truly lived. If you're beginning the journey back to your inner voice, leave a comment. I choose to be honest with my soul. Because you are not alone. And you're not wrong. You're simply following a flame. The world isn't ready to understand, but your soul has known all along. A Sagittarius doesn't leave you because they don't care. They leave because of something bigger. A calling they cannot ignore. A loyalty no one else sees, but truer than any vow ever spoken. They are not loyal to the role. They are loyal to the soul. And if you think you can control them, remember this. They haven't even tried to control themselves. They are listening to something higher, more sacred, more divine. And if you're quiet enough, you might hear it inside you too. And that is why you can't tie down a Sagittarius, not because they're cold, but because they are being called to a place where light needs them to shine. And what's even more mysterious, when you stop trying to hold them, a Sagittarius might stay, not out of obligation, but because love has been set free. There are people you simply cannot keep, not because they don't love you, but because their role in your life is not to stay, but to awaken. That's who Sagittarius is. They are the torchbearers of the soul, not meant to be clutched, but to light up the parts of life not yet seen. You can't hold a flame in your hands forever, but you can carry it in your heart and let it guide you every time you lose your way. Looking back on the journey of a Sagittarius, you'll see one truth. They are not easy to love, not easy to keep, and sometimes not easy to understand. But no one ever truly encounters a Sagittarius without being changed, even just a little. They are the seed planters, not the harvesters. The beginning, not the conclusion. The force, not the finish line. We don't need to control one another. The world doesn't need more relationships built on possession, but more relationships built on freedom to grow together. I once heard a mother say through tears, "My child is a Sagittarius. They always worried me. I didn't understand them. I tried to hold them close, at all costs. But eventually I realized I didn't need to hold my child back. I needed to trust that they knew the road they were walking. And when I finally learned to trust, that was when my child came home and hugged me tight. For the first time in years." Do you see? When you stop trying to control, when you stop loving through fear, love can return in its most beautiful form. Can you love someone? By letting them be free. If this speaks to you, if you've ever learned to love without owning, leave a comment. I've learned to love through trust. Because maybe, just maybe, you are the mirror for someone else. Someone who's learning how to let go without losing. Sagittarius is not meant to be possessed. They are not a gift for you to hold, but a light to help you see your own path. And the most beautiful thing is, when you grow enough to no longer need to keep them, it might be at that very moment they choose to stay. Not out of bondage, but because love has been liberated. And if you've made it this far, perhaps you're feeling something inside you beginning to stir. A truth long buried, an old light being reignited. And this final truth is no longer about Sagittarius. It's about you, about the part of you that once tried to control everything because you were afraid to lose. About the part of you that thought love meant holding on tight, not understanding. About the part of you that never knew why someone came into your life and left too quickly, leaving behind an emptiness nothing else could ever fill. But now you know. You can't control a Sagittarius because they came to liberate you. Liberate you from fear, from old chains, from the idea that love is about possession, and most of all, from the small self you once thought was all you had. They are the one who awakened you. They hurt you just a little. They made you remember something you had long forgotten. And then they left, softly like the wind, but sacredly like a prayer. Thank you for staying until this final breath, for opening your heart, for listening, for seeing yourself in the story of Sagittarius. Not everyone has the courage to reach this depth of truth in their soul. But if you've stayed, I believe you're no longer who you used to be. Even if just a little more courage, a little more letting go, a little more light. If this video touched your heart, leave a comment right now. I choose to live free and true to my soul. Not just a statement, but a small sacred right to step into the next chapter of your life. And a torch, so others, those who are lost, can find the light through you. Like and share this video, not because I need it, but because someone out there might be struggling right now. Struggling to hold on to someone they love, struggling to control, struggling to not lose themselves. And they might be healed just because you shared this. And if you are a Sagittarius, or you love one, leave your story below. I will read them all. And who knows, your words may be the next chapter of a journey far greater than you ever imagined. You cannot hold a Sagittarius in your hand, but if you love deeply enough, the light they leave in your heart will stay with you for the rest of your life. If you're ready, subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next journey of awakening.